I truly think that this camera is going to pave a new road for Leica in the future and the future of the M system. Well, we're back a year later, and now we have the M11 Monochrom. Welcome back to Camera West TV. My name's Carlo, and today we're out here in the Presidio and we're taking a look at the new Leica M11 Monochrom. Looks pretty much like the M11, but a monochrome. So this is the fourth iteration of the monochrome. This succeeds the Leica M10 monochrome, and then before that, the 246, and then the original M9 monochrome. So there's a lot of heritage built into this camera, and we're gonna see how it takes the advantages of the M11 and the advantages of what the M10 monochrome brought to the table and put it to the test. It's said to have really good versatility for its dynamic range. It has about 15 stops, which is pretty much similar to what the M11 offers. We also go over that in our M11 video. You can check that out up here. There's a lot of technical features that the monochrome offers, such as no color filter array. And we also go over that in our Tri-X versus monochrome video right up here. Right off the bat, my first initial reaction was, wow, this looks exactly like an M10 monochrome. But when you look at the fine details, such as the removal of the base plate, it's pretty much the perfect combination of the M11 and the monochrome. You have the grayed out lettering right here on the top plate, and then you have the advantages that the M11 offers, such as the top function dial, as well as the much larger screen on the back. And obviously the removable battery, which you can use in your M11. According to Leica, with the monochrome sensor, the photographer achieves a significantly higher sharpness and brilliance than with the color sensor of the same resolution. Since the sensor only sees in grayscale, it has no color filters on the pixels. Color interpolarization is not necessary. This means the detail can be reproduced with the highest sharpness and stand out from their surroundings with higher contrast. Since the color filters absorb light in a conventional sensor, more light arrives on the monochrome sensor. This higher sensitivity results in lower noise with the same normal sensitivity. So much like with the monochrome series of cameras, they look very similar to the color versions, but then you have some key differences. The first thing you'll notice is that the LCD is made out of a sapphire glass instead of the Gorilla Glass found in the M11. It's much stronger. And then you notice that it omits all the iconic Leica branding, which is pretty standard for all monochrome cameras. And you have a new base ISO of 125. That's the lowest any monochrome has gone. The M10 monochrome featured a base ISO of 160. And the new max ISO is a whopping 200,000. 200,000. That's crazy. To give you a sense of scale of how large that ISO sensitivity is, the M11 featured a max ISO of 50,000 and the M10 monochrome featured a max ISO of 100,000. Both of those together only make up 3/4 of that sensitivity, but it basically quadruples and doubles the max sensitivity of both cameras, which is kind of absurd. So this camera also features about 15 stops of dynamic range, which is pretty much the same as the Leica M11, but the ratio at which noise appears performs much differently because of the lack of a color filter array. This camera features 256 gigabytes of internal storage, so that's quadruple the amount of the original M11. And lastly, this is the first monochrome to feature highlight weighted metering, which is very crucial for how to expose for your images, especially when you're working in grayscale. Having that ability to meter in that style, you get a more balanced exposure and you'll just get more tonality in your image. For those of you who like to tone your photos in camera while you're out in the field, this camera features a quick access point in the menu so you can go straight to sepia weak, sepia strong, blue weak, blue strong, selenium weak, and selenium strong. This new monochrome features the same finish found on the black M11. It's pretty durable. I can feel that it still has that nice like textural grit, which will definitely go away after some more use, but ASMR. This camera also features the same backside illuminated sensor found in the M11, but without the color filter array. And it also features the triple resolution technology. So you have a max output of 60 megapixels, a medium output of 36 megapixels, and a minimum output of 18 megapixels. At the time of this recording, it's confirmed by Leica that at all 3 resolution sizes, you get 15 stops of dynamic range. Who the heck leaves a lift bike in here? Things you gotta do to get a good shot. Don't beep on me. So at the time of recording this video, Leica sent us a pre-release version of the camera along with this 28 Monochrom. Right now it's running the beta software. So hopefully by the time you get the camera in your hands, you'll have the finalized version. So as we made our way through the Presidio, I noticed that the lighting conditions kept changing from overcast or like slightly cloudy to pretty bright sun. So I thought this was a great opportunity to really shoot the monochrome in mixed lighting conditions and to get a good sense of how it really retains shadow detail. And you know, right off the bat, I was pretty surprised with how much shadow detail this camera can retain. I mean, you're looking at almost near darkness and all you have to do is move the slider over and you know, there's a bunch of detail uncovered. So it was nice to really stick with this base ISO of 125. I really think that it shines the brightest at that point. You get really nice tonal range all across the board, especially when you meter for the highlights or the bright areas of the scene. I mostly stuck to aperture priority while using this camera. I just wanted to see how well the camera could calculate exposures, especially when I was using it in the highlight weighted metering. I think having the multi-field metering as well as the highlight weight metering, it was a good combo to meter for very complex lighting situations, especially with the day being mostly mixed lighting conditions. So I brought the 28 Monochrom spherical as well as the 50 APO Monochrom M. I wanted to use a sharp wide angle lens to show off the landscape and scenery, as well as get in really close and focus on some of the finer details of each areas that we were in. So I thought the 28 and 50 was a pretty good combo for that. So we made our way over to Fort Point. We're gonna go inside. I think this is the perfect place to really test the dynamic range of this camera. We're gonna shoot it at a bunch of different ISOs, a bunch of different lighting situations, and yeah, enjoy the view. So let's go check it out. So right off the bat, we were at ISO 16, and this very high contrast situation, the electronic shutter kicks in. So I think that's a good benefit that transferred over from the M11. You don't have to shoot with an ND filter in really bright spaces. As we got to Fort Point, I started to realize that ISO 125 might not be enough, and I was shooting at too low of shutter speeds. So I decided to boost everything to 1600 as well as 6400. Shooting inside Fort Point proved to be a challenge just because you have very intense dark areas as well as very intense bright areas. So naturally this would be a great place to put the M11 Monochrom to the test. We found this one area that was really dark, but it had this patch of light shining through one of the windows. So we did an ISO test at ISO 6400, ISO 50,000, ISO 100,000, and ISO 200,000. At ISO 200,000, you can see a lot of grain and some of the shadow detail as well as the highlight detail just kind of vanish. But I think it holds up and is usable to an extent. But I think if there was ever a situation where you really needed ISO 200,000, you at least have the option with this camera. You can also find these photos in the link down below so you can check them out at your own pace. Fort Point proved to be a really good challenge for the monochrome for mixed lighting conditions and low light, but I wanted to see how the M11 Monochrom proved in true low light conditions. So I went out with the monochrome as well as my 35 Sumlux. And as you can tell, the monochrome does exceptionally well in low light. It holds a lot of highlight detail as well as shadow detail, and you can see almost every little bit in the scene, almost as if you had some kind of night vision. I mostly stuck to ISO 6400. I think that was a nice balance of digital noise where it was not as distracting, but it kind of mimicked film grain. And at that ISO range, I think it looks very similar to T-Max 3200 or Ilford Delta 3200. I didn't really find myself reaching for 200,000 ISO. I felt like I had no problem shooting at night, especially at f1.4. Also for fun, I decided to throw a red filter on the camera just to see how it would look and how it would perform. But it almost felt like I was shooting an ND filter on this camera. but I do think that the skies do look a little bit darker, but I'll let you be the judge of that, so you can let me know down in the comments if you see a difference between the red filter and the no filter. I also found myself not really using the toning options in this camera. I think it's a great addition for people who love to use toning or are familiar with toning, but myself, I just shot it as normal. Most of the photos that I shot were in the 60 megapixel DNG size. So we here at Leica Store San Francisco decided to each take the camera out and make some photos with it. Everyone decided to use a different lens, as well as go to different shooting locations, as well as different times of the day. And we wanted to show and share with you guys just how different each photographer could use the monochrome. The Monochrom is a very versatile camera, and as you can tell from the team slideshow, everyone had a very distinct style, and it really comes down to how they perceive their surroundings, as well as their lens choice, the way that they perceive light, as well as their photographic influences. And like I said earlier, you can view all of these images in the link down below so you can view them at your own pace. In a world of digital color cameras, who is this camera for? I think the Leica Monochrom series of cameras is a true testament of Leica's love and devotion to black and white photography as well as black and white film. I think it's fair to say that this is the closest experience to film as you can get with a digital camera. Having that limiting factor of only shooting in black and white truly gives you that sense of shooting black and white film. How you choose to approach your photos with a black and white camera switches up the way that you think about your world and how you would perceive even the everyday scene. You won't just notice a pop of color and think, oh, I'm gonna take a photo of that. It gives you some breathing room to think and be a little bit more critical about your image. The way that you can edit and manipulate these files in post almost feels like how you would work in a darkroom. You're only working with the light values. You don't have any color channels to worry about. There's no way that you can think about color affecting the image in any way, shape, or form. And that's all to say that the Leica Monochrom series of cameras will give you a unique experience unlike any other, and it'll be like popping in a fresh roll of black and white film for the first time. And for all the monochrome users out there, the upgrades are gonna be worth it. Well, this wraps up this episode of Camera West TV. I hope you enjoyed the first look at the new M11 Monochrom, as well as the slideshow that the Leica Store staff shot with it. So I think it was a cool collaborative project. And don't forget to check out the blog portion of the website. You can see all the full photos as well as the comparisons and the full gallery of photos from the Leica Store team. Also, don't forget to check out leicastoresf.com and camerawest.com for all your camera needs, new or pre-owned. Like and subscribe and comment down below what you think about the Leica M11 Monochrom. Do you like monochrome? Do you prefer color? Black and white or color? And who knows, maybe there's a part 2 to Tri-X versus monochrome. Once again, this is Carlo from Camera West TV. I'll see you next time.